Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Make sure you check them out online at tuscaloosatoyota.com. Glad you're with us as we're midway through the month of June, and last week the athletic competition calendar for Alabama athletics came to a close as the track and field team was out in Eugene, Oregon for the national championships. We'll be talking about that in just a moment, as well as a conversation with our director of athletics, Greg Bryne. But we'll start with today's headlines presented by RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. We begin with track and field, and we begin with Mercy Chelangat, who is the national champion in the women's 10,000 meter race, won that race by more than 12 seconds from her closest competitor, and she'll be coming up with a one-on-one conversation with us here on Crimson Drive coming up in just a few moments. Women's team finished number 28 in outdoors. The men's team had a great finish as well, number 11. 26 overall student athletes earning outdoor All-America honors in Alabama track and field, so congratulations to Coach Waters and the Crimson Tide for closing out track and field season in a very strong way. Taking a look at swimming and diving, everything's done in the pool, but in the classroom, we know there was great work done as well. Morgan Liberto was a first-team Academic All-America selection, and then from the men's swimming and diving team, they led the nation in terms of having two COSIDA All-Americans academically. Derek Moss and Nicholas Pereira earning those honors. Again, no one else had two on that list from the same school. Congratulations to Derek and Nicholas for representing Alabama on the COSIDA Academic All-America team. So that's a quick look at the headlines, and I do want to note earlier, it was announced earlier today that Alabama men's basketball will be playing against Oklahoma coming up in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and also the game for the Crimson Tide against Gonzaga this season has also been announced to be played at Legacy Arena in Birmingham coming up on Saturday, December 17th. So those are a couple of scheduling notes for Alabama basketball, and we'll be talking more basketball throughout the next few weeks here on Crimson Drive. But today we start this edition with Mercy Chelangat, who won the national championship in the women's 10,000 meter race last week in Eugene, Oregon. She already won a cross-country national championship. She is one of the most decorated student athletes in Alabama history. So we start our edition of Crimson Drive with her, and then we'll be following that with a replay of our conversation with the Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama, Greg Bryne, live. So those two interviews are coming up. Mercy Chelangat, followed by Greg Bryne. Mercy, congratulations, Roll Tide. How has it been since you won the national championship last week in Eugene, Oregon?
It's been amazing. I mean, I'm just happy that I got to win this time. You know, as you know, last year I came short, I came second. So winning this time round was really amazing. I'm really happy for what I've accomplished.
What did you like about your preparation going into that national championship meet? Because you've had a really solid season leading up to that point.
Yes, I did. So because last year I came second, so we were like looking through my season for last year with my coach, and we were like kind of planning how I'm gonna do it this season, like what I should do different and what I should do the same from last season. So what we agree was that I don't run a lot of races, so I did my 10K during ACC's championships. I didn't do it before because last year I think I did it before, and then I did it also during ACC's championships. So I just did that during ACC's, and also like the workload that we were doing last, like the amount of training we were doing, I think we kind of changed it a little bit this season. So that we're like when I was going to national championships, I was still a little bit fresh and like ready to run the 10K. Yeah.
What's really important in the 10,000 meter race? That's what you won to pick up the national championship. But if you could just take us through all the different parts of that race and your mindset while you're out there.
Okay, so while I was out there, was like, before I went first into the race, my coach was like, you should be patient. Like because last time what I did different was that I started leading from way earlier, and at the end of the race, I didn't have that much energy to like finish strong the way I wanted to. So this year, I just decided to be patient most of the time until my coach said I should go in like 6 laps to go. So that's what I did. Like I was really patient, and I was just working with the other girls. And also like I was not supposed to do any leading at the beginning before it was time to go. So that's what I did. I decided to stay patient and just walk with the other girls from the beginning of the race until 6 laps to go. And that's when I decided to go. And I think that was, I think that was, I think at the end, I still had some energy left, unlike last year, because at the end, I was really like, I didn't have any energy left to like run as fast as I wanted to. So this time I did have that at the end. So I think that was just, I think we planned it like well, unlike last year.
And of course, you pulled away in the last 3,000 meters, especially end up winning the race by 12 seconds over your nearest competitor. What's going through your mind at that time? Are you just focused on the next step that you have and keeping your pace, keeping your rhythm, or did it start to sink in a little bit that you're about to win this race and about to win a national championship?
Actually, both of those things were going through my mind. Like at the same time, I'm like, I'm just gonna take like a lap at a time, a step at a time, and just focus on like keeping that rhythm going. And at the same time, I was also like, I'm ready to win this time. Like last year, I came second, and I came into this race this year, and like with that at the back of my mind, that I want to like focus on my game plan and like win the race at the end of it. So both of those things were going through my mind. I was just like excited to win the race. At the same time, I was like focused on keeping that rhythm going and making sure like I maintain my pace and stuff like that.
Well, of course, it's not your first national championship. Also picked one up in cross country, but how would you describe the feeling once the race is over, once you're able to celebrate with your teammates? What were those few moments like immediately following the race, getting to celebrate a national championship?
Those moments were really amazing. I was able to celebrate with my host family and of course my coaches, and like it was just amazing. I was just really happy for that. I mean, I've been preparing for this and I wanted to do this, and it was just amazing. I was just happy for what I have achieved. Yeah.
Some really great moments for you. I know you had to be proud as well of so many of your teammates, both on the women's team and the men's team, for what they were able to do at the NCAA championships in Eugene. Just in your opinion, who stood out from Alabama at the national championships last week?
I'm really proud of the men's 4x4. I think they did a really amazing job. I think also Bobby, he did amazing, and Isaac and all the other trolls guys. There's also Sam in javelin. And then I feel like everyone who went there, like I feel like all of us who went there, we did amazing. So I'm really proud of everyone. Also, Mari, she tried because she's been having a really, she didn't have a good season to begin with. She had injuries and stuff. I think also she did amazing. So yeah. And also Flomina, oh, my friend Flomina, she did great in the 1500.
Well, that's very good. What's it like to compete for Coach Waters? What makes him such a good track and field and cross country coach?
He's just an amazing person. Actually, what make him like stood out is that like when I came to Alabama, he actually believed in me so much, and he accepted me and gave me full ride despite like what I was going through at that moment. I wasn't in my best shape, but he believed in me, and I think he's just an amazing person. He's an understanding person. He actually like talks to me and like try to understand like what's going on in like my life other than just like running wise, I guess. So he's just a really amazing person, and he has been like there for me and my brother all through. So he's just an amazing guy. Yeah.
What have you enjoyed most about being an Alabama athlete? Because you've been celebrated before at Bryant Denny Stadium with a full crowd celebrating your national championship from cross country, but have you just enjoyed getting to meet Alabama fans and knowing they're cheering you guys on?
Yes, it's I mean, it's just been amazing. Like everyone is just celebrating you, you know, like walking around campus, meeting people, and they be like, oh my God, Mercy, you're amazing. Like, I feel like that's just amazing. Like you find people, you don't even know them, but they just be like, yeah, you are like, great job on your races and stuff like that. I feel like that's just amazing.
Well, everyone's certainly proud of you for winning, of course, the national championship this past week in the 10,000 meters. But for you now moving forward, what's next for Mercy Chelangat?
Okay, so I still have another year with the University of Alabama, so I'm gonna be here for another season, and I don't expect anything less. You just expect like to move forward from here. So I feel like we're gonna be having an amazing season. I'm excited for cross country, and I'm also excited for next year's indoor and outdoor season, and then after that I'll be done. So I'm just gonna like make the best of it and like make it as memorable as I can. So yeah.
Do you have any international races coming up in the next few weeks, or are you starting to focus on cross country now and what's coming up for Alabama this fall?
Yeah, I'm just focusing on cross country now and what's coming up for Alabama. I don't have any other races right now. Yeah.
Well, we're really looking forward to seeing you compete for the Crimson Tide again. And congratulations, Mercy, on another national championship during your time at the Capstone. We look forward to more coming up next year. But just thank you so much for joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. And once again, congratulations from all of us. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Thank you so much.
We're now pleased to be joined by the Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. And Greg, Roll Tide, it's great to see you. It's been a little bit since we had our last monthly conversation, but how have the last few weeks been for you and Alabama athletics?
Well, it's obviously our competition season ended this past week at the NCAA Track and Field Championship. The men finished 11th in the country. The women finished 15th. We were real proud of Mercy for winning the national championship in the 10,000 meters. I was actually out there for the race, and really was cool to just see that all the hard work that she had put in over the years to put her in that position. So, but things are going good. We had SEC meetings down in Destin. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about in our industry right now, and it's just a very interesting time, to say the least. And so we've been keeping busy. Back to competition. With track, we had 26 All-Americans. So that was quite an accomplishment. And we just finished up the academic year as well, and we had 16 of our teams at a 3.0 or higher. So we were real pleased with all the efforts and success in the classroom too.
So much of our conversations before have really focused on COVID-19 and the impact of that on Alabama athletics and just college athletics in general. And even though the pandemic is still raging on in different forms, how nice was it to go through a year where there weren't too many interruptions? We did see some here and there around Alabama athletics, but so much of it was able to get back to normal or pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, obviously, our whole approach the entire time was we were going to respect the virus, we were going to respect one another, and we were going to do everything we could to move forward safely. And I think for the last 2+ years, I think we've done a good job of it. And obviously, the pandemic has been real. It's had a lot of impact on a lot of people and families, which you hate to see. But it was obviously very nice to be able to get through a year with less disruptions as the vaccination rates continue to improve. And, reality, you talk to our doctors, who we tried to listen to the entire time. It is probably here to stay. It's part of our society now. And, and obviously the more time that goes on, the better science and information we'll have behind it. But we knew the entire time, Roger, locking down when we didn't know what was going on, understandable. But at the same time, too, when you're dealing with our student athletes and 18 to 22-year-olds, it was something where we were having a lot of mental health issues that really escalated during the lockdowns. And we had to try to find the right balance. Now, that's what we have done. And with that said, it's important for people to have the opportunity to come together and find ways to celebrate together. And we're very fortunate that our sporting events have been a big part of that for our fans and our state. And it's felt really good to be able to do that again.
It really has. And if you look back, the last time we spoke, we wrapped up the basketball season talking about men's and women's basketball. Right now, baseball and softball are kind of in the rear view mirror, but we're seeing just how competitive the SEC has been in both of those sports. Obviously, with softball and then baseball, Crimson Tide had a winning record against 4 teams from the SEC. They're now moving on to the College World Series in Omaha. Does that just speak to how competitive the SEC is in those two sports and how well Alabama played in both sports?
Yeah. Obviously, when you talk about the SEC across the board, we've continued to rise our level of competition, which says so much about what the SEC represents. SEC West, especially in baseball, it's a challenge, and we saw that with all the teams that have made it to Omaha. We finished out the year winning 2 of 3 at home against Arkansas, which was a shot in the arm, got us into Hoover, and we made the double elimination round there. Obviously, when you talk to Coach Bohannon, it's not how we wanted it to end. We want to get back to NCAAs like we did the year before, and hopefully get in a position to host. And then, you host, you got a great chance to get to Omaha. So we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and I'm very pleased with a lot of the progress that we've made. But we still know that the bar is higher of what we expect for our program. And Coach Bohannon and his staff and the team are working at it every single day to continue to get better. And we're doing all we can to make sure we're supporting them through that process too. And obviously the bar is at an all-time high with our softball program. And it was a challenging end of the season, but I mean, just great group of young women on the team. The job that Coach Murphy continues to do is just off the charts, and we're proud of just the energy and enthusiasm he brings every single year to our softball program. And I know that we'll be back hosting regionals and super regionals and getting back to Oklahoma City in the very near future for that too.
Two programs at Alabama that have a winning tradition. Same could be said for Alabama gymnastics. And since we last spoke, we've seen the transition, bringing in Ashley Johnston as the new head coach of Alabama gymnastics. Just what can you tell us about the transition and what you saw in her that made her the right fit for this program?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Dana for all of her years of effort and leadership for our program. And when we knew we were going to be out looking for a coach, I had never met Ashley before. She was on my radar screen early on, as were some other people. The more we dug in and kind of talked throughout the gymnastics world to some folks, and then when we got a chance to talk to her right away, I've been fortunate. I guess fortunate to go through a lot of different interviews over the years. And, there's some when you sit down and talk to somebody within 5 or 10 minutes, you're like, oh boy, I really like this person. And Ashley was that. The job that she did coaching at Auburn, she deserves a lot of credit, but just her perspective on gymnastics, the entirety of the program, is obviously the competition part is extremely important, and we want to compete at the highest levels. But there's also many other aspects that you have to do as a head coach and manage for your program. And she had, I just think, a great grasp of the gymnastics world and what it's going to take to get us to where we're one of those Final Four teams and competing for national championships on a regular basis, which we have obviously with our great history, and we want that to continue in the future. So thrilled to welcome her to town, and I know she's already out working, and been talking to actually talked to somebody today that she may be bringing on her staff. So I know she's getting after it every single day right now.
That certainly sounds good. And that was a notable addition to the Crimson Tide, bringing in Ashley Johnston as the head coach. We did have somebody as part of your executive staff that left Alabama also in the time we last spoke, and that's Jeff Purinson, who did such a great job in a variety of roles for Alabama athletics, but most recently the executive deputy director of athletics for Alabama. Now he's the director of athletics for Arkansas State. I know you're extremely proud of Jeff and what he can do coming up in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Yeah, very excited for he and his family. Julie and Jillian and Josie have all become friends of Regina and mine. And, early on when I got here, I had never met Jeff before. But as soon as I got a chance to get in front of him, I talked to some other people. Actually, one of the first people that reached out to me about Jeff was Reese Davis. I like to tell the story. I said, man, you started out pretty strong for your first endorsement of you when I took the job here. But obviously, Coach Saban hired him as his media relations guy when Coach first got to town, and he did a great job managing that side of our department for us, which is obviously a really important role. And then right before I came to town, Coach Battle actually brought him over from an administrative role and had him doing a lot of our external units of our department. And the more I was around him early on when I got here, I was like, this is a guy I can trust. I know he's going to work hard. And one of the things I like to say to our executive team is I'll say, don't tell me what I want to hear, tell me what I need to know. I think that's important as a leader to be able to have open communication, for you to have constructive feedback from people around you that are with you every single day. And I'll tell you, he was always really good about giving me that type of feedback, telling me things I needed to know as the AD. And I think that's a real art and a real value. And we're going to miss him a lot internally within our department. And I know a lot of people around Alabama really enjoyed getting to know Jeff and his family. And they're going to do great things over at Arkansas State.
Well, it's certainly exciting for him as he continues taking his next steps. And of course, you leading this Alabama athletics program, getting to meet with a variety of athletic directors from all across the SEC at the spring meetings. First of all, how nice was it to be back in Destin after a couple years of not having the meetings? What do you feel like we learned about SEC athletics moving forward from the meetings a couple weeks ago?
Well, we've got really good leadership with Greg Sankey, and the presidents and chancellors in our league are very united and working collectively together to do what's best for obviously everybody's institution, but balancing that with what's right for the SEC, what's right for college sports as a whole. It was good to be back in Destin, although to be honest, when we're there, we're in the conference room the whole time. As families get to go out and hang out by the pool. So when our kids were still living at home, they always had a big time with that. But it was Regina and I, and I took. The Sandestin Hilton conference rooms may be if you're ever hot, just go in there because you can hang meat in there. It is freezing, and but it was great to get back together. A lot of interesting things to talk about. Obviously, football scheduling was one that had a lot of the discussion. I think there was a thought going in that we probably would resolve whether we play 8 or 9 games in football. But the thing we learned through COVID is that don't make decisions necessarily in a rush. Make them at the right appropriate time. And we did that during COVID and allowed us to compete and play across the board, which was really important for us. I think the same thing is we just take a look at what our different options are from a scheduling standpoint. Obviously, we have been very vocal about trying to have more good games on our schedule, more SEC games. We went out and scheduled games against a lot of opponents in the future. We start with Texas this year. We've got Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, Wisconsin, a lot of really good ones coming up down the road here. And we did that when we were planning on playing 8 games to get us to 10 Power Fives. Now, what does the college football playoff look like going forward? And we're going to make the best decision that we can for Alabama and the best decision for the SEC. I can tell you there's a lot of support for 9 games in the room. I think we're just kind of working through what that looks like and what the right decision is for the long-term health of the SEC and college football as a whole. And I know we'll find a good landing spot here, whether it's this summer or early in the fall.
Well, we have a lot of great games coming up at Bryant Denny Stadium coming up this season, starting with the opener against Utah State. And kind of with that in mind, as we are a couple of months away from the football season, anything different about the fan experience that could be on the horizon at Bryant Denny Stadium?
Well, first of all, we're starting at home and not in Atlanta or Dallas or Florida or something along those lines. So, and we're playing Utah State, which will be a night game, and we were very excited when we got to see that. So that'll, we won't be baking in the sun that afternoon. The next week we go to Texas, obviously, to start our home and home series with them. We're obviously working diligently with our staff on the customer experience across the board. We want all of our fans to have a first-class experience, and we've continued to do just some cosmetic improvements to the stadium that will hopefully enhance restrooms and concessions. It's not the major overhaul that we want to do down the road here, but we'll continue to do what we can to make sure our fans have a great experience, and we really appreciate how they continue to come out and support the Crimson Tide, which is so critical for them to do that for the success of our program.
So that's a lot to be excited about coming up for Alabama once we start that next school year. And one of the things we continue to monitor in college athletics, name, image, and likeness. We continue learning more about it. Just what do you continue learning more about it over the last few weeks, and what could be on the horizon there?
Yeah, well, it's reality. It's here to stay. We have to deal with it. I know there's a collective called High Tide Traditions that some Alabama folks have started. I think that is starting to make some headway and making sure we stay competitive. And it is really important that we stay competitive in that new era of NIL that we're in. I think out there, what is first and foremost, there have been some great opportunities for our student athletes. And I think that is wonderful of good, legitimate NIL opportunities. And that should be the way it is. And we have embraced that, and we're all for it. I think what you're seeing sometimes in some of the narratives out there, it's been hard to separate fact from fiction. And I do think there are some narratives out there that aren't necessarily always true as far as what you hear, as far as what a young man or a young woman could be have an opportunity. The NCAA has said it's not supposed to be a recruiting incentive, but the reality is everything is about recruiting. and when it comes to college sports. And so it's unregulated, and it is having an impact on what takes place. And so while there's a whole lot of good, we need to make sure we protect that and do that for the long-term health of our student athletes. I think that's a good thing to have them have opportunities in the NIL space. At the same time, too, we got to make sure that we do what we can to protect broad-based programs across the board in college sports, and the great impact that has on the young men and the young women involved, on the communities, on the university, and make sure we say, hey, there's a lot of good to that too. And I think it's important that we do everything we can to protect that for the long haul.
Well, right now, as we mentioned, Alabama just saw track and field come to a close with the national championships out in Oregon this past weekend, and now we're getting ready for this next school year and athletic year. Just what's the focus going to be for you and your team going into these next few weeks as we get closer to the start of fall sports?
Well, hopefully we get a few weeks to kind of catch our breath. Although it's, with summer school now being year round and June recruiting and things like that, it's not quite as much of an opportunity to turn the light switch off for a month or two. However, we're going to be preparing for the next academic year and competitive year, and we got a lot of teams I think are going to be in a really good position. I was able to talk to Nate Oates earlier today for a while, and he was talking about the new guys that are out on the practice court already, and I think it should be pretty darn exciting. And then all of our other sports are going to be going, and it's almost year round now. So we're working on all aspects of it. We're obviously getting, continuing to work on plans on what does the SEC look like in 2025 when Oklahoma and Texas come in, and getting scheduling ready for those things. Continue to work on the Crimson Standard and work on the new competition arena. Working on the new golf course plans, and so there's a lot going on, raising money for all those as well. So those conversations are ongoing. But there's a lot of exciting things taking place, and the next year will be here before we know it.
We look forward to all of it. Greg, just thank you so much for your time with us here today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. We look forward to our next conversation as we get closer and closer to the start of a new year. But thank you for joining us. Roll Tide.
Thanks, Roger. Roll Tide.
Really enjoyed that conversation with Greg Bryne, as well as Mercy Chelangat right before that, as we discussed her national championship and then so many things going on with Alabama athletics with Greg Bryne. And we know the next few weeks are going to be busy as well, and we're going to continue being busy here on Crimson Drive, as we'll be with you throughout the rest of the month of June on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central, right back here on the CTSN Facebook page. And then we'll have a couple of weeks off starting in July, but we'll be right back with the start of SEC Media Days, starting to gear you up for the beginning of Alabama football. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Make sure you check them out online at TuscaloosaToyota.com. Special thanks to our producer Ethan Carabin for putting this show together. Thanks as well to our guest this week, Mercy Chelangat of Alabama Track and Field and Cross Country, as well as the Director of Athletics, Greg Bryne. For everybody with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover wishing you a great weekend. So long, and Roll Tide.